Hey, what's good? A couple of days ago, I reviewed the Unforgivable Blackness, The Rise and Fall of Jack Johnson, the book. And today I just finished watching the documentary, the PBS documentary, Unforgivable Blackness as well today. And it is a great companion to the book. I finished watching finished reading the book. I finished watching the documentary. It's a great companion. They go hand in hand, I want to say. The documentary is very true to the book, or I should say the book is very true to the documentary because the documentary was actually made first. But of course the book is a lot more rich and a lot more detailed. So that's why I would recommend reading the book first and then watching the documentary because you pretty much know everything that's going on with the in the documentary, but then you get supplemental pictures and document and video, which is very cool to see, man. You read in the book about all these white women and then his extravagant lifestyle, and you see him in this documentary wearing suits and smiling in the picture. And for me, it's very rare to see pictures from back in those times, like the early 1900s, of people smiling. But you see it. You see Jack Johnson's golden smile, as they would say. Even back then, he refused to be anyone else's man besides his own. You see the cars he drove, the clothes he wore, the woman he got with at that time. They have some very cool pictures, some very cool footage of him training, like from even before he was champion. And it gives you a better idea of the times. Like it said that Jack Johnson would talk to the crowd and he'd be smiling during a freaking fight, man. And you could see it in this documentary. You could see it in the video of those fights that he was talking to the crowd. he was he was smiling during a freaking fight, no mouthpiece. And you could even see during his fight with Tommy Burns. I guess you could just watch the fight, but when he hits him with one of the hardest shots ever, I would assume, you could see him picking out the teeth from his own gloves. Damn. So that footage and the pictures in the film are very very cool to watch. That's why I would recommend watching this documentary. If you're gonna watch the documentary and not read the book, okay. But I want to tell you that you'll lose. There's a lot of more information, of course, in the book that you could read about in the book that you will not be receiving in the documentary. But there are some cool parts of the documentary, like I said. But also James Earl Jones. You get Burt Sugar. What's his name? Jose Torres, former Puerto Rican world champion from Puerto Rico. Very cool insight. A lot of the stories inside the book are actually from the documentary. So that was also cool to see. You get the insight. You get like scenes from what movie is it? The Birth of a Nation, because it talks about that in the book as well. But you get the scenes from that where blacks are portrayed in that movie as either rapists or being really foolish or being very deceptive and tricky, right? And you get that scene in the book in the documentary. Also, you get at the end you get his whole life story like was presented in the book as well. So you get his whole life story. I'm not gonna go too much in depth of his story saying it because I went through it in my book review. If you haven't watched it, go ahead. That's a little longer than this will be, I'm sure. But yeah, at the end, it got a story that I don't remember being in the book, where he's had long retired and he went into a gym, and Joe Louis was champion at that time, but they were like, oh my god, it's Jack Johnson. And they were surprised that it's Jack Johnson because it's freaking Jack Johnson, right? And he was in a suit. It showed pictures. They didn't show the video, but they told the story while they were like sequencing the pictures. If you know what I mean, like frame by frame, sort of. So it had him. He was wearing a suit. He's like, "Who's the fastest guy you got?" So you got some dude that was training in the gym. He stepped up, put the gloves on with the suit on. He just took off the coat, right? And then he proceeded to like to he still, play a defensive master that he was, and he still was. And then when this guy was too exhausted, he stopped and he's like, I still got it. I'm still the man. That's what you gotta do. That's how a fighter should behave. So, very good documentary, very in depth. This really shows how the time was and the racial tension. Very cool pictures from the time. Very cool fight footage. All the footage throughout that time is very, very cool, very informative. If you're interested in the history of boxing and even in the history of America at that time, this will really help you. Like, it said that Jim Crow, Woodrow Wilson was voted in because when he was voted in, he was supposed to give African Americans their civil rights. That was his campaign at that time, like giving rights to blacks at that time. And once he came in, he inaugurated I don't know if that's the word, but he put in all these Jim Crow laws once he was president. So there's a bunch of these bits of information, these gems in this documentary as well. But so yeah, great documentary, great companion at the time. Great to know about the history of the United States in the early 20th century. Very cool documentary. All right, everybody, thanks for watching. And did you watch this documentary? What do you think? What do you think about Jack Johnson? Please leave your feedback. And don't forget to subscribe. Peace.